Have you wondered how you could write a novel in 20 minutes? Well, I've never really wondered that, but I'm about to find out because writing fast would sure help me. And my guest today is Bruce Ducker, and he's written a whole slew of novels and poetry. Two of his best are Dizzying Heights, which I am loving, all about the world of Aspen, Colorado, and Home Pool, stories of fly fishing with some great illustrations in there. And Bruce is going to be a guest at Author Fest, a keynote speaker, a workshop facilitator. I'm so excited to have him on the show. Welcome to the show today.
Thanks very much, Michelle.
Now, as well as writing full-time, you're also an attorney?
I am.
Are you able to work full-time as an attorney?
I'm able to, but unwilling to. I'm too indolent for that, but I do have a law firm with my name on it, and I show up every now and then so they don't sell the furniture.
Well, one of the things that authors really struggle with is how do you get up every morning and put pen to paper? You've got a ton of interests. You're a pilot. You love going out in the wilderness. You're a writer. How do you find the time to sit down and write with all these other things, including a whole law firm to run? Do you have a practice?
I think it's merely a question of doing the things that you love to do, Michelle. I don't think it's any secret. If you don't have anything to write, you can save yourself, the trees, the publishers, and the entire reading public a great deal of time by not writing. If you want to write, it's the only good reason to do it. So I think we put our priorities first, don't we?
Absolutely. Do you sit down and write every day?
I do. I write every morning. I'm usually up early, and I've done my writing by whatever time I decide to come into the office. I've practiced law in Colorado now for 46 years, so I don't carry a full schedule. I'm a corporate lawyer, which means I don't have to respond to litigation and judges' schedules, and I pretty much have my own schedule.
So you sit down and write every morning, and do you know what you're going to write about? Do you do free form writing? Tell me a little bit about your practice, because that's, I think, what authors really want to hear.
I am too terrified to sit down and free form write. I never start a project unless I know a good deal about it, and I usually think a good deal about it. A novel particularly, less so with short stories, and even less so with poetry, which is one of its real appeals. You can finish a poem fairly quickly. I just had a poem in the New Republic that I wrote in an hour or two for a friend of mine who was dying. It was over quickly, like a successful dentist's office. But taking on a novel is a commitment of significant time, and I don't do that until I've really thought it through.
And do you then block it out and block out your chapters? Is that the process that really works for you?
My first novel came out in 1975, and I had a wonderful review in the Wall Street Journal, the last line of which was that they loved this book by this promising young writer. I was then both young and promising, neither of which I am anymore. But the problem was that the outline showed through, and I've never gotten over that criticism. Like most criticism, I don't recover easily. So I don't have an outline as such, but I do try to have what I'm going to do the next day in mind before I stop. I can't imagine sitting and looking at the blank page. You know, William Blake used to say that he didn't write until he saw the image of his dead brother at the window. My brother is very much alive, but if I saw him at the window, I think I'd call the police.
Yeah, you've written about all different kinds of subjects, and you just mentioned that you really like to know your subject, know what you're going to write about. You've written about Aspen, about fly fishing, and many other topics. How do you choose which direction you're going to go in? Does sort of the light bulb come in, the inspiration come in, or do you really sit down and think about how to choose your next topic?
It's a wonderful question, and I don't know that I have an good answer for it. I have an answer. I've raised enough children to know that you always have an answer. It's not always the right one. I think it's terribly important for a writer to know why he or she is sitting down to write, so that until I have something that has the momentum, the profluence, is what one writer has called it. John Nichols has a wonderful book on writing, and he mentions the need for profluence, which I take as momentum. Until I have that I think it's either an idea or a character or a single scene. You know, Dr. O said he wrote Billy Bathgate because one day from his apartment on Kips Bay in New York, he was looking out and he saw a tugboat, and there were 3 men on the bow dressed in tuxedos. And it was such a vivid and evocative scene that he built a novel around it.
Wow. That's powerful, because I can see that scene just as you were saying that, and that is what is powerful about reading and writing, is when you can really set the scene and see it in your own imagination.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
And I think the writer of nonfiction has a disadvantage in that he is circumscribed by the facts, and the writer of fiction is circumscribed only by his imagination. Sometimes the imagination, of course, is living in the south of France and doesn't answer its telephone. So,
you know, you have a wonderful keynote speech about how to write a novel in 20 minutes. Can you just give me the quick 3 tips how I can go about writing my novel in 20 minutes?
No, it's totally fraudulent. I was asked to give a topic for my talk, and really what I thought to myself is, well, the in 20 minutes modifies not how to write a novel, but the extent of the talk. I am going to try to touch on at this Author Fest, I am going to try to touch on 4 or 5 considerations that it seems to me you need to digest before you create the voice of the book. And we've all read books in which the voice doesn't hold up, it's not true to form, and the novel hasn't been thought through. And I hope not to do that.
I think what I've really gotten from our short time together is that you put so much time and effort into the thought that goes underneath the writing, that you do have a structure, you have a foundation that the whole book and the writing can lay on, can hold on, and that thought process that you go through is what you're recommending other writers do before they ever sit down to write. Part of what you say.
I think that's quite true. Neil Simon, said about his playwriting that he simply goes out to his studio and he has all these characters in the room with him, and they just act out and he writes out what they say. I don't believe a word of it. That's a little like the elves and the shoemaker. And my elves have never shown up. I think it's a great deal of mentation and preparation, and sometimes it ain't much fun.
I'm reading your book about Aspen, Dizzying Heights. I'm loving this book. It's full of everything. How much of your own experience, your own life, came into this book?
A friend of mine, when asked the question of whether or not his writing is biography, he said, yes, every piece in the novel, especially the punctuation. I don't have a good answer for that. We do have a house. We had a house for many years in Aspen. It simply got too crowded. We've moved down valley on the Roaring Fork. I know a lot about it. I would say that there is not a single character in the book that comes from real life, nor is there a single character that departs very far from real life. I was criticized I had one bad review, and of all places it was in the Aspen papers.
Oh, right.
That it was unrealistic, but you don't have to waste much time in Aspen to realize that it really is a town in which a Bentley can drive up and a Jaguar automobile gets out of it. It has become a town of great excesses, and therefore I think it's a pretty easy town to satirize.
I really appreciate you being a guest on my show today. I recommend Dizzying Heights as well as many of your other books. Bruce Ducker has been my guest. Here's just 2 of his great books available. I think you have 8 out now. Is that correct?
Home Pool is my 9th.
Ninth coming out. And I really look forward to hearing you at AuthorFest and meeting you in person. Thanks for being a guest.
I'll see you there. Thanks much, Michelle.